You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, world, and welcome to Tales from Hollywoodland, a veritable feast of movies, television, Broadway, showbiz stories, and even a little bit of news and gossip. With Julian Schlossberg, Arthur E. Friedman, and Stephen J. Rubin. Today, we are talking to Impressionist Josh Rosen. And now, here's Steve.
Hey, Josh, welcome to our show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So the best place to start is usually at the beginning, and I usually start by asking, or we usually start by asking questions about your background. Do you come from a show business family?
I actually don't. My dad's an accountant, and although he's very into show business, and he got me into especially comedy at a young age, so I've always had a good eye for what's funny.
So what were those first comedy influences that he introduced you to?
Well, certainly Woody Allen would be one of them who I impersonate. But at a young age, I used to imitate students in the classrooms, especially starting like in elementary school. And I remember when I was young, my dad said, "Oh, you got to look up this guy, Rich Little." So, to this day, I still go on YouTube and watch like old clips of Rich Little, who was one of the great impressionists. And, he's one of my great inspirations in this craft that I do.
Did you ever think of actually performing yourself as an actor at one point?
A little bit, more on the, I really wanted to be a sports broadcaster. That was my original first love. I was like, I'm going to be the next Marv Albert, who I also imitate. He was one of the first people that I started imitating when I was in elementary school. Yes, it counts. And the foul by Josh Rosen put on a Steve Rubin.
But can you do Marty Glickman?
I don't have a Marty Glickman impression yet.
Ooh, he was the best.
Being a West Coast person, my favorite broadcaster of all time is probably a tough one to do, and that would be Vin Scully.
Deuces are wild here in Dodger Stadium. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 men on the bottom of the second.
It's good. It's
very good. Very good.
He's nasal. Josh, there's a young guy out there now, and he's killing him, named Matt Friend, I believe it is. He's doing the political stuff mostly. So how did he break through? What happened with him?
I don't know. I'm still trying to get to that point where I have that breakthrough moment that Matt Friend's had. I'm not really sure what, I think social media is a big thing right now. So I post a lot. He posts a lot on TikTok, and I think he's had a lot of success from TikTok, and he was able to get a big agency behind him, which I think helps a lot. I think he's with probably William Morris or one of them. And, I haven't reached that level of breakthrough yet, but I know social media is like the new TV. So,
yeah. Your Woody Allen is as good as anything he does for the politicians he does, and that's what he's doing. So he's doing the news shows and CNN and MSNBC. So he broke through.
Right.
So what's the key to doing Woody Allen? Because you got it spot on. How did that go about for you?
Well, it's a lot of it's about getting the energy of the person down and embodying them. When I'm doing any impression, but especially Woody, I feel them in my body as I'm doing the character. So when I do Woody, obviously he plays a character, of course, where he's a little bit more anxious than maybe he is as himself, but I embody the anxiety of Woody Allen well. And, then of course it's the moving of the hands, which I know we're doing an audio podcast, but I'm sweating internally right now as I'm saying this, and I'm rubbing my hands together. And he certainly says a lot, and I think you're an immoral, dishonest louse, and I say that with all due respect, Steve.
That's just great. That's great.
And, so I've watched almost all of his movies, right? And there's young Woody Allen, right? And I have more of a look of young Woody Allen because I'm 36 years old. So I love a lot of his younger movies, like Play It Again, Sam is one of my favorites. And just studying his character through, just repetition, I finally kind of figured out how to play him.
I'm a love and death. I'm a love and death guy. Woody in the Russian, in Russia during that period is just hysterical.
From his old nightclub, there's something, there's some kind of a series on the records of his old nightclub routines, and he was great before all the movie stuff started. That's how he broke through. He broke through from the nightclubs. One of his great lines I always remember was he had this is when he was a young guy, and he had two friends who got married, and you could do this perfect in your with your voice. Two friends that got married, he didn't know what to get them for a gift, so he wound up getting them. They were both drug addicts, so that he wound up getting them a 14-piece set of sterling silver, all spoons.
Yeah,
he took the beat.
One of his great lines was he says that. Franklin Roosevelt said, "You have nothing to fear but fear itself." And Woody said, "And that's enough." Tell me, Josh, a little bit about playing nightclubs. Have you had some hecklers? Have you had to deal with some people who are pains in the ass?
Occasionally, yes. I've gotten strong enough as a performer that I don't usually get those too often, although I do impersonate the president. I do actually the last 5 presidents. And even though I don't do it in a way that's political at all, it's just neutral, impersonating the president as they are and making jokes. I did have a heckler about 6 months ago who was yelling at me as if I was actually the president on stage. And so the way I handle it is I just stay in character as the person, and, we're going to get this guy out of here very quickly and very easily. We're going to deport him and send him back to China.
No, it's funny when I'm speaking to people like Robert Klein and Roseanne Barr and Susie Essman. All of these people say they live for hecklers. They want hecklers. They like hecklers. And I was kind of surprised, but they I guess because they have the microphone,
They have the microphone, yeah.
No one was ever better or quicker with hecklers than Don Rickles. No one. It was always bing, bing, there was no beat. It was right back.
Yeah.
Where are you working, Josh? Where are you working down here?
Well, I live in South Florida.
Where do you live?
And specifically in South Florida?
What town? Yes.
Oh, I'm in Deerfield Beach.
Deerfield Beach. I'm in Pompano Beach, and I'm at the ocean. Where are you? Are you east or west?
West. You want my exact address?
No, of course not. No,
he's going to stand on there.
So we live in the same geography.
Oh, that is. So actually, there's a comedian. I'm sure you know him, Sarge. Have you heard of him?
I think I do. Yeah.
So he plays to. He's a fantastic comedian. He plays to like all the gated communities down here. He does a lot of the Jewish crowds, and he actually has me as his opening act a lot. So I work with him a lot in the communities in South Florida.
There's a lot to work for. Wow. A lot of condominiums. My God.
Josh, have you ever met a comedian named Bruce Smirnoff by any chance?
I know Bruce Smirnoff very well.
Bruce was my former writing partner.
Wow.
We 5 of us wrote a comedy called Spacemen from Planet Judy, which I'll tell you about sometime. But yeah, Bruce for a while was doing the cruise ship circuit.
Yes. So Bruce, I met Bruce a few years ago, and he's been a mentor to me. He saw me in one of these bar in Boca Raton, Florida, where I was doing comedy, and no one was doing well that night. And then I got on and had a good set. I was doing Bernie Sanders impression on stage. The top 1/10% are controlling all the gefilte fish. The bottom 99% are controlling all the black and white cookies. Free matzah for everyone.
It's very good. It's great.
Bruce has one of the great lines. He's talking about a Jewish singles dance. A Jewish singles dance is the last step before out and out homosexuality. That's a Bruce line.
Great. There's also a guy named Bruce Valanche. It's not the same guy, is it? Steve?
No.
Bruce Valanche. I remember. Yeah, kind of remember him. So, Josh, who else is in your wheelhouse apart from Woody and Sanders?
Well, Woody, Sanders, and then I do the last 5 presidents.
Doing Obama. Let's hear you do him.
Look, I'd like to thank Arthur Friedman for having me on and giving me access to affordable health care.
Very good. Excellent.
But I know that you do a great Larry David.
Larry David's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah,
Not bad, right? Not bad.
I'd say.
Not bad for a balding Jewish guy.
What has been a tough night for you performing? Did you have a real one that you just didn't hit, and how did you handle it?
Absolutely, especially early on, before I kind of knew what I was doing. There was several nights where that would happen, and I think it's just like recognizing, okay, what do I need to do to get better, and get to work on that. And then also, I also understand that not every crowd's gonna be the correct audience for what I do. And so a lot of it's like identifying the type of audience that I'm going to have. Like, for instance, my Woody Allen impression works fantastic in front of an older crowd. But if I do it at a comedy club in front of people who are 25 and under, it's not going to go as well.
But I think you do well in universities, certain universities for sure.
Definitely.
They're still into Woody Allen, Harvard, and
So for a younger crowd, what's your MO for a younger crowd?
Well, for a younger crowd, they certainly love when I do the presidents. Anything is relevant, especially with President Trump. I was doing President Biden, and I still.
How the hell do you do President Biden? How do you do that?
Hey, folks, it's great to be on the thing, man. And I want to thank my wife, Kamala Harris, for doing the hokey pokey.
You're wondering with just the eyes. If the people could only see you, yes, that's great.
I don't know, Josh. You sound a little bit like George Burns.
Come on, man.
Yeah, well,
give me a break.
Well, George Burns got that raspy voice, right?
Yeah.
When did it all hit you that you said your dad influenced you by taking you to see comedy, and Rich Little obviously is an influence, as you say, but were you in school? Were you a class clown, do you think?
To a degree. I used to be very shy, but I've also been, and I think a lot of comedians are this way, very observational. Like I always would just notice things in the classroom, studying the teachers' habits or tendencies, always aware of my surroundings. And I think that's like a big part of it. Like I always wanted to sit in the back of the classroom, besides not wanting to be called on by the teacher, to just watch everyone, study the other students. So I think that's a lot of it.
Josh, at the very beginning, my partners and I invested in and managed a guy named John Pinette. You know John's work, big, fat, heavy comedian?
I've heard of them, yeah.
John became hugely successful, but I was there at the beginning, and I saw how rough it could be working in some of the rooms from Boston to LA, and it can be rough. But he was genuinely funny. How does it feel to bomb? What does that feel like for you?
Well, it's embarrassing, but I always at least prepare enough that doesn't happen too often anymore. but it's a very embarrassing feeling, and you don't want to, like, I love to talk to the crowd after a show and mingle with them and promote myself. Some comics like to just get out and, move on. But when you bomb, you don't want to talk to anyone after the show.
Yeah. So a non-impressionist comedian comes on stage for 8 minutes and does material. They do their jokes and their repartee. An impressionist comic also needs to prepare material, I would assume, and you are preparing jokes as well as your impressions. Is that true?
Absolutely. There's always jokes or scenarios to put the character in that I'm imitating to make it funny. So if I do Woody Allen as a football coach, or something similar, Bernie Sanders broadcasting a golf event, scenarios like that.
Let's hear Woody Allen as a football coach.
Men, it's great to be here in the locker room with all of you, but I gotta tell you, it's a little bit intimidating without this towel wrapped around my waist. I feel like a Hanukkah candle in a redwood forest.
That's great. Great. Nobody's going to do Woody better than that. That's fantastic.
Have you ever met Woody Allen?
I have not. It's certainly someone I would love to meet. I did get my impression. I believe he's seen it, though, because I sent it to one of his stepdaughters on Instagram. I think it was Bichette, and she saw it and she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to show Woody and my mom." So I think he's seen it.
There's a great bit on the Johnny Carson show from years ago when he had Marty Short, and Marty Short can do a lot of impressions. He's one of the biggest talents that ever lived. So he had Betty Davis was on at the same time. I trust you know who she was. Josh?
Absolutely, yeah.
With him. And this was the old Betty Davis. So he's doing these great impressions, and she said, "Well, can you do me?" And he turned around to her and just did her perfectly. And she said, "Well, skip it then." Meaning she didn't get it at all.
Right. So, well, Julian has interviewed Woody recently. I mean, Julian's good friends with Woody. And
Bichette is not a stepdaughter. He adopted her. She's an adopted daughter.
I meant to say adopted daughter.
Yeah.
Not stepdaughter.
No. And nice young woman. I'm interested in knowing when you're doing some of these impressions, have you ever had anyone call out and say, "Do this" or "Do that"? Did they do that at all to you?
During the impression?
Yeah. No, not during but while you're up there, just, instead of saying, "Sing Melancholy Baby."
Yeah. Yeah. That has happened occasionally. Yeah. And I just roll with it. I just stay in the character. I like to stay locked in the characters.
To answer them. Yeah.
To answer them. Yeah. A lot of times I do shows a lot where I come out in character where they never actually hear Josh Rosen's real voice.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I did that a couple weeks ago. I came out as Woody Allen and I introduced Donald Trump as Woody Allen.
Great. That's a great bet.
I'd like to introduce a man who I have no respect for whatsoever, President Donald Trump. Excuse me, little Woody Allen, you've said so many nasty things about me, okay, very nasty and very low energy. I have a lot better movies than you, believe me.
That's great. Just great, Josh.
And it's funny
that's funny stuff.
When you can find characters that, are kind of the opposite to impersonate, it makes it very funny too. And so I also do Rodney Dangerfield.
Go. Do it.
Go.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm all right now, but last week was a rough shape, I tell you, I told my wife she was lousy in bed. She went out and got a second opinion, My life. No respect at all.
You do Buddy Hackett?
I don't do Buddy Hackett. No,
that was hard to do. You shouted him out. They wouldn't know he is.
if you went back to, say, 1945 and looked at show business, there's probably 2,000 people you could do impressions of. My sense of it, and maybe I'm just being naive, is it's tougher to find personalities these days who are worth doing the impression of you. Do you find that to be true?
There's not a lot of like big movie stars nowadays to mimic. So I kind of, I'm a big sports fan, as I mentioned early. So I do a lot of these like sports media personalities like Stephen A. Smith, who's everywhere.
Well, I'm a big sports fan too. Let's hear Stephen A. Smith.
Well, let me be very, very clear, Arthur Friedman. When you look at it from that perspective, I do not think you're box office. Now, Woody Allen, he's box office. But I wouldn't say that you were scrub. We look at it from that perspective.
Uses the big words. Always uses the big words.
Blasphemous. That brother's blasphemous. It's preposterous. Ambidextrous.
Do you do Harry Carey?
No, although I was doing him like a year ago. I just, sometimes I haven't done one in a while. And
Funny thing. He's funny.
Hilarious. But I do like Kevin Harlan, broadcaster, and obviously Mad Dog Chris Russo as well.
How do you do him? You just go crazy?
Oh, for crying out loud, back in my day, Bob Cousy was the greatest basketball player of all time, better than Larry Bird. Elijah Rabbit.
Outstanding. This guy, so you all know, Mad Dog makes a living just ranting. He just rants,
So God. What I found is that the funniest characters to imitate are anxious and angry. Yeah. Those emotions are very funny, I've found, in comedy. So it's like those are the characters that are the most fun to imitate, and then obviously I exaggerate it.
Yeah.
Did you ever bother to do Howard Cosell?
A little bit, but the problem is like the people who would know it, I think, are beyond my demographic usually.
Yes, so, you're right.
So
but if you want to know something, Josh, Billy Crystal became Billy Crystal, broke through doing Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali together. And he was at a dinner or something like that, and that's how it happened for him. And he did it great.
He also did Fernando Lamas, and nobody knows today who Fernando Lamas is, but
I don't know.
He looks marvelous.
Better to look marvelous than feel marvelous.
Right, exactly.
Now, Josh, there was a guy years ago when there were a number of impressionists doing. There were, as you say, today there's no really definitive characters, it seems, that people would understand, other than perhaps presidents and major politicians. But years ago there was a bunch of there was Cary Grant, there was Charles Boyer, there was Peter Lorre, Julian, Humphrey Bogart, and these guys would just do them, and it was fantastic. Everybody knew who they were. But there was a guy who actually took it to an art. Did you ever watch Frank Gorshin?
I've watched some of his videos. Yeah,
he became an artiste doing it. Yeah.
Well, he did something that very few people could do. He not only did the imitation, his face. He was able to use his face to imitate them, and like he would have Kirk Douglas fighting with Burt Lancaster.
That's right. And he became a star. I mean, he broke through too. But he did Jimmy Cagney, like you say, the facial expressions, the body, everything worked. The hands, he was an artiste without question.
Yeah, I've noticed too, the more mannerisms you can incorporate into the impression, the funnier it is. Like I get a kick out of when being able to do an impression like Woody, for instance, without even saying anything,
Yes.
In terms of facial expressions, a lot of the comics these days, they seem to like to do De Niro because De Niro has that face. Have you ever tried to do De Niro, Josh?
I've tried to do it, and then I noticed that like he's been done so many times that I'm just not going to touch it because there are other comedians who have just got him down so well.
Well, yes, but it's so easy to do him, having met him. I mean, he mumbles.
Right.
So, you don't really get full words. It's easy. He's got a very definitive thing to do,
Right. Yeah.
Who do you like in the movies that you like to do other than Woody? Is there another movie actor you like to do?
McConaughey is fun.
Oh,
Because he's and I actually was in a movie with him. I had a scene in this movie called The Beach Bum that came out like about 5 or 6 years ago.
oh,
And I didn't do the impression for him at the time, but he's a fun character to imitate. He's so laid back all the time.
got that little accent.
That's all right, all right, all right. You know what they say about those high school girls, right? I get older, they stay the same age. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Jackie Mason, who was a really funny guy, and I managed him for a while, could do the best Ed Sullivan you ever want to see. And often he didn't even have to say anything. He'd twirl around, he'd make his faces, even though his comic sketches were way beyond just Ed
But
Sullivan.
I agree. You're right, Julian. He did the best of the Ed Sullivans, and in those days, everybody did Ed Sullivan. His was
That's
outstanding.
right. The guy who had a huge career and was over in a few years was Vaughn Meader, who could imitate JFK, the first family, and he could do the best John F. Kennedy anyone ever did. But sadly, his career was totally shot when Kennedy was shot.
He was the guy killed two people. He killed JFK and Vaughn Meader, who lives up in Maine. But Vaughn Meader became a household word at that time. He had JFK so down pat, and JFK was an extremely popular president, but he had him nailed. And so when the guy, can you imagine that? I mean, the guy, he lost it. It was over. But
Yeah.
he was bigger than a bread box,
That's why it's great, Josh, that you're not just doing Woody.
Right. I don't want to be boxed into as just the Woody guy or just the Trump guy or whatever.
But I'm just curious to know something. In our days, everybody did Cary Grant. So if I were to say to you, can you do Cary Grant? Do you even know who he was? I trust you do.
I know who he was, but I've never practiced to even do the impression.
Never did it, right? Isn't that something?
Yeah.
We all did Cary Grant, right, Julian?
Oh, God, everybody.
Judy.
I wanted to ask you, Josh, who was the hardest one it took you to master? Which was the toughest of all the ones you've done? You've mastered it, but it really took a while.
Well, I think I've gotten good at doing Barack Obama, and that took a long time to get down.
Excellent, by the way. Excellent.
Because the way he speaks is pretty unique. He's a guy who's got a lot of different backgrounds in him. He's got some Chicago in him. He's got some Hawaii in him. He's got a little Southern cadence to him.
He's got some street. He had some street.
Probably even some Boston, because he lectured in schools for years.
Yeah.
But Josh he has that thing in his throat that you're able to get the voice up a little higher. And that's remarkable. It's probably as good as Obama's ever heard.
Yeah, but the Obama one took a while to get the cadence down and the pitch. It is easier for me to go higher in pitch than lower when I'm doing someone who's really deep. Like I've tried to do Morgan Freeman, and it's very challenging because his bass is so deep.
But I'll bet you do a great Bill Clinton. I'll bet.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What I'd like to say, Arthur, is I did not have any relations with anyone in Deerfield Beach, Florida.
Pompano Beach, maybe. Yes.
I have.
That's fantastic.
What's the difference between Bush Elder and Bush Jr.?
So,
I'm just kidding.
Well, I do Bush Jr., and it's a lot of work, my friends. When I was president, I was the peacemaker, and Dick Cheney was the pacemaker. And his dad was,
a little bit more of a mumbly voice like this. Read my lips. There will be no new taxes.
Dana Carvey made a living on that, didn't he?
Dana Carvey, yes, that was his signature.
Dana Carvey does Woody Allen too, and I'm telling you do a better Woody Allen than anybody I've ever heard.
Yeah, people always tell me that, and I appreciate it. I've seen his. Yeah.
Who else is out there today, Josh? That's doable. Who is missing?
Is Albert Brooks doable, Josh? Because Albert Brooks is became kind of a Woody Allen type character.
Yes, that would be one. I never thought to imitate him, but absolutely, Albert Brooks would be one who's definitely imitatable. Yes, and
especially when he walks down to the casino and finds Julie Haggerty has basically given all the family money away to that roulette wheel.
Josh, do you know the true story of Billy Crystal, who was so in love with the baseball player Mickey Mantle? I trust you've heard of him. Sure. And he spoke with a Oklahoma kind of a southern drawl, that he was so in love with him, Billy did his bar mitzvah speech in Mickey's voice.
Oh, that's
the actual bar mitzvah, you know.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, Arthur?
Baruch atah Noah. And so he did it when he was 13 years old. But there was a guy out in L.A. who was a great supporting actor, was in a number of movies, named Ed Lauter. Eddie was just great. If you saw his picture, you'd know him. But his thing was he would do batting stances. You could mention any ball player, Peanuts Lowry, and he'd do the batting stance. And he had them all nailed perfect, you know? So that was kind of a funny bit if you knew baseball.
Yeah.
Well, I could do Gil McDougall.
Yes, spread. I remember that.
Yeah. And Tim Salmon has that wide stance, or that closed stance, or whatever you call it.
Well, I'm just saying, but the thing is, it's so funny to see someone imitate someone else, not even doing the voice, but doing something like a batting stance. People love this. So you got an opportunity. You do great stuff here, Josh, and we hope you get there.
Josh, what is your favorite baseball team? Who do you follow?
Well, I actually don't have. I am a big sports fan, but I don't have a baseball team anymore. I used to be a Marlins fan, but they've just been bad for so long. Right. My dad's both a Yankees and a Mets fan, so I'm kind of adopting them as my teams for now.
So were you born in New York or born in Florida?
Born in Florida.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents are both from New York, though.
So they're transplants.
They're transplants, yeah. Like a lot.
Josh, are you doing this? Are you making a living doing working the clubs? Not yet.
I'd like to get there soon, of course, but I'm not quite there yet.
What is it you do for a living?
Well, right now I just drive Uber.
Well, that's okay. It's a living, right?
Yeah. And I do my gigs when I get them, during the week at night. And I'm always on social media.
It'd be great doing a bit for somebody in an Uber who maybe like myself or Julian or Steve, who know Woody Allen as an example, and you start doing Woody. Just drive. We could do it. Just do the real. Where are you going? Or
you could name your car the Woody.
The Woody. Right. I'm flustered right now. The GPS is telling me to go north. You're telling me to go east.
That's right. It would be great.
Just give me a chance to breathe. All right.
Oh God.
Yeah. I go through the drive-throughs a lot at Dunkin' Donuts, where I order coffee, and they know me at all the Dunkin' Donuts because I always order as different people.
So how is Woody doing his morning coffee?
I have terrible acid reflux. So if you can do me a favor, and I'd like an iced decaf coffee because I'm highly sensitive to caffeine. And, dairy, I do terrible with dairy. So oat milk, if you don't have oat milk, don't worry about it. Almond milk's perfectly fine. And small, because your smalls are still very large. And, that'll complete my order.
Julian, you got to tell Woody about this. You got to.
Well, I'll be talking to him soon, so I will.
That is great.
Josh, do you have presence in social media? Do you have a TikTok video and everything?
Yes. Yeah. I'm all Josh Impressions is the name of my TikTok Instagram, YouTube, and
So
Twitter.
get to you, joshimpressions.com.
Well, my website is joshrosenimpressions.com.
Okay.
And my social media is just Josh Impressions.
Okay.
And
Have
I'm
you?
I'm growing a pretty good following.
Have you had a chance to meet any of the people you imitate besides Matthew McConaughey? And as you say, he doesn't know you imitate him.
He doesn't know I imitate him. You know, it was my first speaking role in a movie, so I didn't want to come off as unprofessional. So I just wanted to, do my job.
Yeah.
And
But you haven't met any of the people you imitate.
well, actually, no, I did. There's a sports analyst. His name is Nick Wright, and he's on Fox Sports every weekday. And he's based in New York is the show. And I got in touch with him last summer when I was in New York, and he had me on. He made me come to the studio, and he loved the impression.
Oh, that's nice that
Yeah.
you met someone. And did you pick anything up from it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you see someone in person, you pick up on even more things than
That's
you
right.
would just through the TV.
That's right. Where were you play? Were you playing a small club in New York? What were you doing?
Yeah, I was actually. I was. Well, I went there I was trying to get on that show that I did happen to get on, which was really cool. And then I also did a comedy club, Dangerfields.
Oh yeah, of course.
I opened up for Bobby Collins. Do you know him?
Yep.
No,
I know him.
I don't, but Arthur probably does.
Yeah, he's been around for a while, and I've opened for him a bunch too. And he was in New York, and we worked together.
Oh, that's good. Did you do Rodney at Dangerfields?
I did, yeah. I could not. I had to.
Right.
I tell you, what a crowd,
So I'm looking you up on IMDb. There's like 19 Josh Rosens in show business.
Yeah,
and a quarterback. Isn't there a quarterback named Josh Rosen?
Yeah, he's a former Bruin, I
Josh
think.
Allen.
No, there was a Josh Rosen who went to UCLA.
Yeah.
He was drafted like number 10, and he just didn't make it.
Just
in the
didn't make
NFL,
it.
yeah.
Those are the guys I know of.
Josh,
Yeah.
my,
One of
my closest friend, almost like a brother, owns Knicks in Boston. And you can play Knicks whenever you want. You get up that way. Any reason to get up to Boston?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have some cousins that live there.
Well, that's one of the hottest comedy clubs, and it has been for about 40 years in America.
Well, Arthur, get Josh into Knicks.
He will be booked. You're booked.
And are you coming out to California anytime soon? Have you been out to California?
I have been a couple times. My sister used to live in San Diego, so I would visit her out there. But yeah, I plan on coming out there again sometime soon.
Great. No, we would love to have you. Now, one sports commentator who I don't know if he's impressionable is Bob Costas. Does Bob Costas have an impressionable voice? Not really.
He does not. And he was one of the guys when I was growing up. I was like, I want to be Bob Costas because I used to love the NBA on
he's
NBC.
the gold standard.
Yeah, but he's very neutral in his delivery and his cadence, and he never gets like flustered. He's always steady, and those are the people that are the toughest to imitate.
Of course, but he's usually smart.
Yeah,
and his knowledge and he communicates it beautifully. He's really great at what he does.
But like Kevin Harlan, do you know him?
I do.
I imitate. Galloping, chiseling, knifing, corkscrewing his way through the drive-through lane at Dunkin' Donuts. He orders the iced coffee right between the eyes.
Excellent. Now, he's probably the best one around today, I think.
Yeah, him. I'm a big fan of Mike Tirico. I think does a fantastic job.
Dude, how do you do Skip Bayless? How does that work?
Oh, that one's the most viral because he's such a weird character to imitate. It's a lot with the breathing. Okay, it's my turn now. In the end, you know it and I know it, Arthur Friedman. You don't have the clutch gene. You're just not that guy, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. I've never seen anything quite like you.
That's terrific. Yeah, sure. I get that. What about let's go over Colin Cowherd. Seriously, could you do it?
I'm trying to get him down.
He can be done.
He's got a lot of saliva in his voice.
Right. Who are your favorite comedians, Josh? Who are your favorite comedians? Forgetting about impressions.
Love Don Rickles. I would say certainly Woody would be up there.
Do you have a favorite Woody film?
Play It Again, Sam.
Play It Again, Sam. So very early Woody.
Early Woody. Of course, Annie Hall has to be in there as well, at which I've memorized the opening monologue.
Let's hear it. Give us a little, please.
There's an old joke. Two women walk into the Catskill Mountain Resort. One of them says, "Boy, the food in here is really terrible." The other one says, "I know, in such small portions, too." That's essentially how I feel about life. It's mostly filled with loneliness, misery, suffering, and unhappiness. And yet it's all over much too quickly.
That's great.
But I love a lot of the older comedians. Jackie Mason, certainly, who I started studying like a year or two ago.
It was all a rhythm. It was a rhythm, right?
And also I like the comedians where they walk out on stage and you're laughing already, like before they even open their mouth. There's just a funny look.
You ever see Jackie Vernon?
No, I have not.
Woody also has a great opening narration for Manhattan where he's writing his book.
Yeah.
Chapter 1. It's very, very classic.
Guys who walk out, the guy who laughed through his entire act, you may never have heard of, named Sam Levinson. He would laugh through his entire act and had his own jokes. Yeah. He was a school teacher in New York City and became huge. He was huge for his time, but I don't think people under 40 even know who he is.
Having been around the block,
don't you? You remember Sam Levinson?
I do.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah. He died very young.
I think I know him more as an actor. Isn't he a character actor as well?
No, you're thinking of somebody else.
I'm thinking of somebody else.
One of Barry's sons is Sam too, but that's a different thing. Sam Levinson, Julian's talking about, was great, except he died probably in the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe early 60s.
I don't know when, but he was terrific at his time. Jackie Mason was brilliant. He really was brilliant. And you want to do a little Jackie? Can you do a little Jackie?
I haven't gotten it down yet, Julian.
Oh, you'll get it.
Yeah,
you will.
Yeah. It's on my list to start working on the impression of him. Sometimes when I do the impressions, I got to study the person a lot first before I even work on the voice. A lot of times, actually, the voice is like the last thing I'll actually work on. It's getting everything else about the person.
But you will nail him. You will get Jackie Mason perfect.
Yeah. The only problem is once again you're dealing with a lot of people who won't know who he is.
Yeah,
right.
It's still funny though.
That's the sad part. So that's why it's great that you've got Larry David, because at least these people, most of them know who that is at least.
Right. And when I do Larry David, sometimes I'll have them play, like I did this at a show a couple months ago. I told the MC play the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme music.
Oh, good.
So I came out on stage like that, and people
as Larry,
right? People were laughing before I even opened my mouth.
He's great, and you do it great. You do it really well. Comedians.
Now, as an impressionist, what is the perfect amount of time for you on stage? Are you locked into a certain gig that lasts a certain amount of time, or does it vary?
It can really vary. Like if I'm doing if I'm opening for the comedian I mentioned, Sarge, or someone else, I'll usually do 15 to 20 minutes. If I'm headlining, I can go 45 minutes.
Okay.
I don't.
15 to 20 minutes opening is pretty good.
Yeah, and it's usually enough time to warm up the crowd, and they're into it, and then hand it off to the headliner.
Have you ever had to do 2 gigs in one night?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And you learn a lot, from from doing the 2 gigs. Sometimes like one show, you do the same jokes and it works well in one show, and the second show it doesn't hit as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, being in Florida, I assume that I think even Bruce was telling me this, there's the senior citizen circuit where you can go to the senior homes and do a bit. Is that something you occasionally will do?
I have. It's not easy. They're not really communicating much, so you're not getting feedback really,
Not big guffaws.
not big guffaws.
There is an agent down here who is the son or the nephew of a guy named Charlie Rapp. This fellow's name is something Rapp, R-A-P-P, and he handles a lot of the cruises and condominiums and all. You might want to check him out.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. And I was doing a cruise down here called the Jungle Queen.
Yeah.
They cut off the entertainment a year ago, but I was one of the regular performers on there a couple times a week.
Well, so everybody knows in the audience, as well as Steve yourself, a lot of these condominiums, particularly the ones on the ocean, you got multimillionaires living there. And they're not all Jewish and they're not all whatever, but it's just, it's a Riviera kind of thing, all the way starting in Miami Beach, going way up north to Fort Lauderdale, where we live in Pompano Beach, Boynton Beach, Deerfield Beach, Boca Raton. It's an incredible thing. Now, years ago, there was somebody I knew out in LA who booked Jack Jones, who was his manager. And Jack Jones, it turned out, Julian, was working cruises, making fortunes. Cruises, the condominiums, they have showrooms that are more beautiful than movie theaters. Would you agree, Josh? Have you seen some of these places?
I have seen it, yes.
You can't believe it.
Yeah.
1,000-seaters, but I mean really posh. So it's a big deal, and it would be great if you could get on that circuit. You'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
seems to me that because of excuse me, Josh, I was just going to say, it seems to me that because of the climate in the country right now and the world, that comedy is so needed. It's almost like everybody needs that drug right now. So I would think that timing would be good for you.
Yes, absolutely. I do all, like I said, I do the political figures too. And I go right. I do it in my own style, though, I think, which is important. I did a gig, actually. I think I did President Trump at Purim like a year ago.
That's good.
Which was very interesting to an Orthodox crowd. But I
ever tried JFK?
I've tried it, but haven't been able to get it down yet. Yeah, but RFK is who I'm working on now.
Yeah,
he's in the news a lot.
Oh, you mean this RFK? Yeah,
this RFK.
Junior.
Well, if you do RFK, you can do Katharine Hepburn.
Right.
Do we understand that, guys? There was this guy Charlie Rapp I'm telling you about, who was the key booking agent for the Borscht Belt, and so he booked all the Borscht Belt comedians and stuff. They had a story once that he had a kid about 19 years old who drove the comedians to these different places. They worked 3-4 places a night. So one night he had Jackie Leonard. Remember Jackie Leonard by any chance?
I've heard the name.
Well, more importantly, does Josh? Do you remember him?
No, I don't.
He was before Rickles. He was doing insult stuff and all that. Very fast. So the kid who's driving him drops him off at the wrong bungalow colony, and it happens to be a Hasidic Jewish a place. And the casino is filled for whoever the act was supposed to be. And Jackie Leonard walks up the steps and takes a look out at the audience without a beat. He said, "Welcome, Legionnaires." All these Hasidic Jews.
So, we on the West Coast, I keep repeating the fact that I'm a West Coaster, but we don't really know what the Borscht Belt is. Does the Borscht Belt still exist?
No. Julian, take it.
Not the way it did. It's still there. There are still places that you can play. But when Grossingers and Concord and the Shanks Paramount and Browns,
oh my God,
they were all there. Jackie Leonard, I was in years ago. Las Vegas pre-Christmas was empty. Now it's loaded, but it was empty. Jackie Leonard is headlining with Frank Sinatra Jr. and the Harry James Orchestra. And he would come out with his hand on his side, a little fat fella. And he would, so Harry James Orchestra does the entire set. Frank Sinatra Jr. does his set, and they're in this 1,000-seat theater. There's about 11 people in the whole theater. It's unbelievable. And they're all doing their whole set. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Jackie Leonard walks out, looks at the crowd, puts his hand there, and says, I could do this whole show in a Volkswagen.
That's a pretty good Jackie Leonard.
Thank you. But, it was those comics. I mean, there was a guy named Steve Allen did a whole takeoff on comics, and the guy's name was Jackie Lenny.
Lenny Jackie.
Well, Lenny Jackie, you're right. Lenny Jackie. And because everybody in those times, Josh, was either named Lenny or Jackie.
Right.
But here's the thing for Josh. That world, which was the 1940s, 1950s, into the 60s, the so-called Borscht Belt, this was for people like yourself. You got comedians that worked all the time, singers. Everybody got started.
Well, that's where Woody.
It was
Woody
a world.
Woody got his start in the.
Absolutely, it was a world unto itself. Summer.
Sid Caesar got his start up there. I mean,
Mel Brooks. They all worked the Borscht Belt.
And Jerry Lewis.
Yeah. So down in your part of Florida, Josh, what's the biggest club there that really is the magnet for the comedians?
Well, we have we have a couple improvs down here. Fort Lauderdale Improv, Miami Improv. Although it is hard to get booked there, though, unless you're a star, a big name. But there are some great independent clubs here. Like there's one in Boca called Sad Man Comedy Cafe, which is a nice place.
Isn't there one out by the Turnpike, right off the Turnpike?
Yeah, it's called Boca Black Box.
Okay, that's right.
So that one's good. And that's kind of how it is, it's and the club scene is, it's good, but it's not for everyone. Like I've done well in my act is pretty versatile. What I found is that I can play to an older crowd and also a younger crowd. I just have to sometimes change who I'm imitating in the act a little bit.
Now, let me tell you here, Nick's in Boston is as great as any comedy club in America. The biggest comedy stars play there. But there's also a lot of young guys like yourself. They would love you. And I'm telling you, you're booked. It's just a matter of you give me a call and say, I can get to Boston such and such time. But you would do great in front of that audience.
Yeah, I'd love to. Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you know of Nick's, Josh? Do you know of it?
I've heard of the club, definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the guys who started there were Dennis Leary, John Panette. There's a guy up there, Steve Sweeney is great. Don Gavin. There's a lot of great, terrific comedians who worked that club. Steve Allen worked there, Julian. He worked there some years ago. He was going up to Boston for about a week. See some people in Harvard or stuff, and he called the owner, my friend, and they set up. He got paid $7,000 for a week, sold out every show. At bigger prices too. But that's a different thing. There's nightclubs. The nightclubs that we grew up with as kids are different than what you're talking about today. You're talking about today, like in LA on the Sunset Strip, Steve. You've got the Comedy Store still.
Right.
And they're not big. They're like, 100-seater, 150 maybe, where Jay Leno's and the David Lettermans and all those guys came out. Great place for you to if you were to move out there, to be exposed. But your Woody Allen would work in those places, believe me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think over the years Woody's star has dipped? Because we find him hysterical no matter what you say. But I know he's living a little bit under this silly cloud, of anyway. What do you think?
Me Too thing?
Yeah, I do, unfortunately, and like sometimes I mention his name to people and their reaction is not always favorable, which is unfortunate. I've been a longtime fan, like I said, of Woody. I read his autobiography. which came out a few years ago, I believe, and it was fantastic. And but certainly to a lot of people, their first reaction isn't like, "Oh, I love Woody." I do, and certain people that I know certainly do too. But for a lot of younger people, it's not always that way.
I'll give you a good one that you might do, Bill Maher, very popular. And Bill Maher, by the way, has the same exact voice. You ready? As Harvey Weinstein, who Julian and I knew, but that's the same voice. You agree, Julian?
Oh yeah, very similar, very similar.
But that's one that he, they'll know him.
Yeah, and I do Jimmy Fallon. I started doing him a little bit too, although I don't find him that. I think he was very funny in his sketches when he was on SNL. I don't personally love him as a late night host, but I started imitating him a little bit because he's.
Why doesn't it work? I agree with you. Why doesn't it work for him being the host of the Tonight Show, even though he's on and getting enough ratings to sustain? But why doesn't that work?
I don't think his interviewing skills are very good.
Awful, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm such a fan of yours. Wow, you did such an incredible job. Wow, it was like amazing. It was like the best movie I've ever seen.
Excellent.
How did you do it? Wow, that was incredible.
Yeah,
that's his whole interview shtick.
That's right. You do Jimmy Kimmel?
Kimmel, I don't have. No, I used to do a Letterman a little bit too.
Let's try. Let's see that.
Our first guest this evening is a very talented man. He's a comedian, impressionist, and he does great Woody Allen. Please welcome Josh Rosen, everyone.
Excellent.
Hey. Have you ever done a female impression?
Yes, I was actually working on Kamala Harris a lot.
Oh,
especially her laugh. I found it very entertaining.
Yeah, it was a cackle.
We did it, Joe.
That's great. That's great. Sadly, it's great. But that laugh may have cost her the election. I hate to say that.
Yeah, but I was imitating her quite a bit before the election. Yeah.
Who does a great impression? Marty Short does Lucille Ball young and Lucille Ball old, relating to what the cigarettes did to her. It's kind of almost like a truck driver,
or right. George Burns.
Yes, right.
Whose nickname was Sugar Throat. I could never quite figure that one out.
Of course, the Impressionists years ago too always had the singers to go to. They were always able to imitate maybe Sinatra, and Nat Cole was easy.
Dean Martin was easy.
Easy, right?
Is Vegas a good destination for you as well, Josh? Are there clubs there you could do there?
It could be. I've been looking into it. Yes, it definitely could be.
Right.
There are some good clubs there.
Your thing would work in Vegas. Your thing would work upscale. It really would. So
yeah,
great. Yeah.
By the way, Arthur, I was watching a movie this morning called from 1968 called "They Came to Rob Las Vegas," and it's shot on location in Vegas. And I'm looking at one of the marquees, and Bobby Darin performing in Vegas.
What year? 68.
68.
Well, that's fairly common. Yeah,
and by the way, that marquee shot is the best thing in the movie.
It's that bad, huh?
Not a great movie.
Oh my God, it's a horrible film.
We've come to the end of our show. We're going to transfer over to our wonderful producer host, Mike Faber. Josh, you have been absolutely wonderful. I'm going to jump onto one of your sites now and hear some more of your Woody, because you could do Woody all day for me and I'd never get tired of it.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Josh, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. You've reached the end of this episode of the Tales from Hollywoodland podcast. Always remember, we couldn't do this here without you. We want to hear from you, so please write us anytime at talesfromhollywoodland@gmail.com. Remember, you could also find us wherever fine podcasts are found, and now you could even find us up on our YouTube channel. If you made it this far into this episode, why not subscribe and give us a thumbs up? Or if you're listening to us, please give us 5 stars. If you're into social media, please check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Before we get out of here, let's check with the guys on what's happening this week on their podcast. Julian, who are you talking to this week?
This week is a gigantic recording star, a huge movie star, an unbelievable TV star when we were growing up. His name is Pat Boone, and he's going to be talking to me. We're going to have one hell of a talk, and I want you to know he's going to tell you about a kid who opened for him years ago. His name was Elvis Presley.
Awesome,
Wow.
awesome. Steve, what's going on Saturday night at the movies?
Well, the other day I was watching a movie from 1996 called 2 Days in the Valley. It's kind of a noir kind of thriller drama. It's directed by John Hirschfeld, and John is going to tell me how he put that movie together. It has a kind of Get Shorty vibe to it. I really recommend it, and we're going to do a nice interview for that movie.
Awesome. Arthur, what do we got coming up on our show next week?
We got a terrific show coming up next week. We're going to do a show on TV to movie stars. Those actors or actresses who went from a role on television to become movie stars, like Clint Eastwood, James Garner. There are so many of them. Fascinating topic. A lot of them came out of these Westerns, Steve McQueen. But that's our show, and it's be a lot of names in that show.
That's awesome. On behalf of Steve, Arthur, and Julian, thanks again for listening. This is your producer and announcer, Mike Faber. Thanks for listening, and we will see you here next time on Tales from Hollywoodland. Your Hollywood adventure starts right here.
What's this? It looks like the end of the Bat Chums podcast.
Holy recap! We've just reviewed 1 season and a half of the Batman 66 series. There's still so many fun episodes to go.
But wait, it looks like there's one thing that can save us.
Magic Batman!
Catch Drew, Mike, and Magic Batman on YouTube, the ESO Network, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Bat Chums are ready to move out.
Don't worry, the worst is yet to come.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.